their husband needs to have man time. And so what happens is the guys tend to feel smothered. They feel like, particularly if they've got a female dog and girls in the house, daughters in the house, and maybe a mother or an aunt that's always around them, and they never have guy, and they need that time with other men. I guess I grew up. I was almost an only child. I have other older brothers that are 10 and 14 years older than I am, and so they always did things with dad that I don't really even remember much because they were so much older. But I didn't really think about guys needing guy time. I met my husband Aaron over 40 years ago, and he very definitely had some interests and hobbies that weren't mine. I tried bowling, needed those little, kitty bumpers in the on the sidebar so my ball didn't go in the gutter. I tried golfing, much better at riding the golf cart and holding the flag than at golfing. But these are sports that he loves. They're not mine. But that doesn't mean he needs to leave the things he does behind so that we do everything together. Yes, when I did talk in my recent video about pursuing a hobby, I talked about the need to do something together. And yes, that does give us time to spend together doing things. But there's also a need to not spend all that time together. Just because in my 12 Keys for Married Success book, I have a chapter called Think Like a Couple. In fact, it's key 2. And I talk in there about the need for us to have things that are together and things that are apart. The decisions we need to make together. And just because we leave our signal ways behind and we start to do things together doesn't mean we need to leave our girl time behind or he needs to leave all of his guy time behind. It's actually we come into that balanced relationship in a marriage, whether we have time together and we have time apart. Now, many times the time together gets pushed into family time or time with the kids, and there's never time for just the two of us. And I'm going to do a series here soon about some special holiday dates. But that's some ways that we can get time together. It doesn't have to take a lot of money or a lot of time, but we can get time together to do this. And I am just not liking my camera today, folks, but I hope you play with me. Hang on. We're just going to keep going. So what does it mean? Why do we as girls not want our guys to have guy time? Here's some reasons. First off, it's because we're afraid of it. We're afraid that when they go off with the guys, they'll never want to do anything with us. And I've talked about some of those reasons why guys don't want to spend time with us. Often it's because we're nagging, we're whining and complaining. And who wants to be around a woman that wants to do that? The Bible talks about it's better to live on the rooftop of the house than to live with a nagging wife, arguing wife. That's one reason our guys won't want to be with us. And so if you're nagging, whining, and complaining, really stop and think about it. You may be driving your guy away so he doesn't want to spend time with you. But he doesn't need all of his time with you either. So we need to not be afraid of him spending time without us. I used to think that I wasn't going to be a good wife if I didn't go do everything with my husband. And it's taken me a long time to get over this. And I can just tell you this camera just brightened up, and I have no idea why. But I'm glad it did. But I thought I had to spend all my time with my husband. And then I found out he likes me there. He enjoys my company. But he doesn't need me there all the time. There's time I need to be alone and do things with the gals and the girls. Got another video you might like called Why Marriages Need Girlfriends, Why We Need Girlfriends in Our Marriages. And that talks about why do we need that girl time. But today we're talking about why do we need guy time. What's the importance of that? So let me just do this right here and see if this helps with the camera. I think it might. Okay. Maybe it will. So, technology is really weird. Sometimes it goes on and off. Hope you just bear with me on that. So sometimes we're afraid that they don't want to be with us. And that's not the case unless you're the whining, complaining, grumping, griping type. Maybe you don't want him to go off because you're afraid to be alone. If that's the case, we need to talk. Contact me and let's talk about that. How do we find things new? Maybe you're like I was when my husband retired from the military after over 30 years in the military. I didn't, particularly when we got out here to this place where we live behind a golf course, and he can golf multiple times a week. I was very envious of him going out golfing. He spent all that time without the guys, all that time away from me. And I really had to stop and think, what do I want? What do I want to do? Well, as soon as I recovered from some surgery I had, I decided I really wanted to try line dancing again. I've danced almost since I was in junior high, and I wanted to do some kind of dance again, so I tried it. And I decided to adjust my life and adjust my schedule so I could do it. Because it was my thing. And actually, when I went, oh, it's my thing. I got something for me. So I stopped being so envious of him. I also realized I needed to find time to have coffee with a girlfriend. I needed to be able to have a ladies' Bible study, so I did things. So these were things that stopped me of feeling jealous of my husband's activities. Yes, part of it is he's an extrovert and I'm an introvert, and so he can easily make friends with people and go out with things. I had to work at trying to get time. But then when I did that, I wasn't so jealous of his time out with the guys. Maybe you don't trust your husband. Maybe you've had an incident in your past in your marriage, or maybe it's now, and you don't like who he's been Facebooking with, or you're afraid he's having an affair. But remember, by clinging to him and not letting him ever go out, he thinks you don't trust him, which is probably the case. But you have to let someone go in order for them to build trust. Other ways you can deal with those trust issues, but it's not in hanging on to him so tight that he can never go out with the guy. And then maybe the last reason here, this is the fifth reason what we don't like guys go out with guy time, is we expect too much around the house. Maybe they're working 12-hour days like my husband did, many times 6 days a week, and you think, why can't he just do something else around the house? I wish he'd do something else. He never does this and he never does that. Well, I had to look at the fact that that was another complaint. And God was providing for our financial needs and for much of our retirement with the job that God had given him in the military. And that job meant that I needed to pick up most of the other activities that were not going to be part of that job. That also meant if we wanted to have time for ministry, I had to have all the other things done. So while I was in the military, I took care of the cars. I made sure the lawn yard work was done. I took care of the home, most of the home maintenance. I took care of a lot of those things, travel arrangements. When he retired, wasn't in that job anymore, he wanted to take those things back. But that's how I got time with him, and he could also have time to do the activities that he really, really loved. So what are 5 reasons that your husband needs to have guy time? We've talked about why we don't want them to and how we can overcome them. Let's talk about why he needs to have guy time. First off, he's a man. He is not a woman. And what I was reading from a guy's message, he said, he needs a shot of testosterone. One time when we were living on a military base, it was a British military base stationed with NATO, and all the guys had gone off to war with the Brits on a NATO war, Kosovo at the time, and there was very few men left on American men left on the base back to the men period. Most of them were gone. And one guy, a bunch of us gals were sitting outside at this picnic table, and a guy walked out there and he said, there is too much estrogen in this room, and he turned around and walked away. Well, the same thing happens. Our guys need that time with other men. They need that testosterone. They need that time to just be men, manly men. Time to be just a guy and not have to be a husband for a few minutes. Does that mean that they let go of their morals and standards? Absolutely not. But they need that time with other men. They need to do things around men that they can't do with us. Like my husband loves to golf, and I'm not a good golfer. My husband, I would love to see line dance with me, but he really doesn't want to line dance. So I have my thing and he has his, and that's okay. But we also have things we do together. He needs a time to spend doing his hobbies. He takes his books on book sales, and I go to some of them throughout the year, but I don't go to all of them. That's his time, pursuing his hobby, his business, his interests, his ministry. Sometimes guys need to get together and just reminisce about the good old days. You know, back when I could, I was such and such on my high school football team. I played such and such on the college team. Remember when we climbed that mountain? Remember when we had that job thing that we overcame? Remember that last military exercise we went on? Remember those war stories? I remember walking into my mom's church years ago, And she was introducing my husband as a military man, and introducing him to various people. And suddenly, all the men that had ever been in any war conglomerated around my husband because they wanted to talk about their war stories together. They wanted somebody in there that would hear and understand their war stories because they had something they could share together. It's not something I want to share, not something I've done, but remembering the good old days. Men need to be around other men that can support a good Christian, support what a good Christian man is, can show them what other good relationships look like, that can also show them what great marriages look like. They need to be around other men. Sometimes that's in the form of couples. Sometimes that's in the form of the guys going off and doing things by themselves together. And they get a chance to talk about stuff from a guy point of view. You know, I talk to women all the time here about how to love your marriage and how to what we as wives can do to have a wonderful life and a wonderful marriage. But it's different. Why do I talk about to women? Because I relate from a woman's point of view, and we talk about things from the same thing. Men, on the other hand, talk about things from a different point of view. They see things differently. Yes, I know all this gender stuff when we're all alike. God made us different for reasons. And yes, there's many things we can do just as well or better than men. That's not what I'm saying. But we still see things from a different point of view. And men need to be around other men that can be that example of what a godly Christian man is. Sometimes they need to be away so they can miss us. For many years, I was involved in a group called Protestant Women of the Chapel, or PWOC, over in Europe and in the United States. But when we were in Europe, I was also president there in Europe for a year. And we had retreats twice a year. Great big ones for all people would come from all over Europe. All the ladies would come over to this big conference center, and we'd have a retreat. And one of the things that happened so often with the gals would say, my husband took off for the weekend so he could stay with the kids. And then they'd go back home, and their husbands would say, I did not realize how much you do. They don't think we're doing anything. They think it's easy to take care of the kids sometimes. They don't think they take cleaning the house doesn't, or planning meals, or cooking, or getting the wash or the errand done, or the kids back and forth to sports things. Sometimes they don't realize how much we really do. And so us getting away, gives them that experience. I can tell you when my husband left for war and went to field exercises or off to war, I was suddenly aware of all the things he did do around the house. And he wasn't there to do them. Many times people have told me when their husbands were going on deployments or long field exercises, they say, people think, you'll have time to do everything you want to do all by yourself. I can tell you I did not. I had to keep track of everything he didn't get done because he was gone. So I actually felt like I had more work than I did when he was home. Being apart makes us miss each other. I can also tell you I miss him in my bed. He's not the warm, snuggly guy that kind of cuddle me. And I can tell you when I go to church, I don't want to be around other men when my husband's gone. Just a little protection there. God knows that we need each other, but we also need time with men. The men need time with the men, and the women need time with the women. So I asked my husband this morning, I said, what do you think about guy time? And he goes, oh, yeah, we really need guy time. And he's serious. We've been married over 40 years. I said, so why do you need guy time? He says, because we need to talk about guy stuff. We need to talk about men's health issues. We need to talk about maintenance for the yard and the home and whatever else they have, car, where else they go, talk about maintenance issues. They talk about sometimes about their way they're interacting with their wives, he said, and how they take care of their wives, or what their wives need, or what their current responsibilities are at this stage of life, taking care of elderly parents or their mom's parents. The wife's parents or their mom and as his parents or her dad. And they talk about it from a guy's point of view. As my husband said, we're not going to talk about where we go get our hair cut or what the best nail salon is. We're not going to talk about, look, I got a new pair of shoes, which I might say to a girlfriend. And we don't talk about the struggles they have with their, they talk about guy stuff, gals. And I don't know what all guy stuff is, but that's what they talk about is guy stuff.